jumping around. Sorry if it's a little noisy right now. I just had to run over to a coffee shop. But without further ado, hello, Dan Curley, David
Hi.
Kokorowski, Ken, yeah, and of
Yeah.
course, everyone else. Austin, nice to see you there. And we're going to let John get us started with a little bit of a review from some things some thoughts and feelings that he has had this year.
Okay.
My short thoughts and feelings. Um, it really has been our best year. I think it's going to be the iceberg year where there's this stuff underneath, but it's been our best year yet. We diversified with new companies. We got a larger client pool with the
Nice.
same staff. We're handling them, and we now have the ability to handle a significantly larger client pool with the same staff. We increased our income. Um, we were part of a small team that won another policy battle at City Hall,
Wow.
overriding the mayor. The city council agreed to take money out of the police budget to put it into our housing pet project.
Wow.
And then the thing I'm most proud of, which I can't take any credit for, is that we've got 9 people working now. And what are the odds that every single one of them is really fast and efficient, likes each other, has new ideas that we didn't ask that all turn out to be good. And even if they're someone who's moving on to a different vocation eventually, they've got our mission. So it's in you don't and they like each other. It's an Dan, that's very unusual. And we're just lucky. Maybe it's because some of them came through other good people.
Uh-huh.
But that's my actually proudest thing of all as I sit at the meetings and just sort of marvel at who's there and how they're contributing.
Great. That's a great thing. Mm.
That was it, Con. It was short.
Nicely done. Dan Curley, David Kokorowski. Look how well we're doing with John.
No.
God, how much coaching did that take? Oh my God.
Concise. So cool. We'll get it started. It'll look kind of like how it did last year, but with just some, sharing insights, the ins and outs of what's happening over here at Team Housing Works. So Dan, would you be okay with sharing the slides?
Mm. There we go.
And I think there's a present. Perfect. Thank you. And so John was able to share a little bit. So we'll move into the next section if you want to go to the Teams page, Dan, and we'll give everybody like a minute or two, or however they feel to share a little bit about themselves and yeah, what they do here, what they like doing, hopefully not too many challenges, but maybe a challenge or two if they have some. And why don't we go like this? We'll go from uh make it a little fun. We'll go left corner Costa and go kind of down to the right, up, and then back to John Labella and finish with Alyssa, if that makes sense. So, Costa, you okay with
Yeah,
starting for us?
sounds fun.
Yeah, of course.
Go for
Hey,
it.
everyone. I'm Jonathan Costa. Um, I think this is my coming up my third year working with HousingWorks, and so far it's been amazing. It's been great. We've had a couple new people.
John, I'm not hearing you. I don't know if it's just me.
I hear him fine, Alyssa.
Oh,
Anyone else
I
having
should have done
trouble
a
with
test.
John?
I can hear.
Okay, now it's good.
Okay,
Sorry
but
about
no, you're good. But yeah, it's been great. It's been awesome working with all these new people, and John is right. We all just connect and flow together so well. Whenever someone has a question, everyone's there to help, and it's just been awesome. So that's been really exciting to see so far. And one of the big things that we've been working on this year that I've been a part of was getting all of our job form applications and everything kind of uniform and working to help us reduce time and getting reports and stuff out. And a lot of that is we have to do like 7 or so different languages, and we have to translate each app and everything into all those different translations of the languages from Brazilian to Cambodia and everything. So this year we made like a huge Word document kind of that has all these translations and everything in it. So it's good. It'll be move things along quicker when we have new apps and new customers that need us to make job form apps so you can easily translate everything and kind of make everything go quicker. But overall, it's been great, and I'm excited to see what's to come. And that's all I got.
Thanks, Costa. I will go next. Xavier, if you'd like to share, please.
Sure. Hi, I've been working for HousingWorks about 2 months now. Most days when I come into the office, I focus on scanning paperwork and handling the in-office tasks. So anything that you can only do in the office. John's been pulling me aside to also teach me some higher level work, such as programming the logic for all of the waitlist assignments, which I can now partially do on my own, but I can't do the whole process yet. And I've also created a new workflow to automate the process for handling dead letters, which John estimates could save us a couple hundred hours of work each year, hopefully. I'm excited to contribute more optimizations like this, as I find it very fulfilling to create efficient processes. Overall, it's been pretty fun working here, and John says it's really crazy, but I find it really peaceful to work here. That's it.
Great.
Love that. Love to hear that it's peaceful. Cool. Evan isn't here right now, but I think many of you, Joel especially, know Evan. He worked here. I think I started around this time last year. He kind of works closest with me. He's got a good eye for kind of social media, helps with our presence there, and yeah, kind of really on that kind of communications marketing side team, and helping try to find creative ways to spread the work that we do without being redundant. And yeah, really just trying to build the client pool. And he's been a big help with that. Next, pass it over to his brother, Joel.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Joel Sibley. Basically, all of my work at HousingWorks is handling job form requests. So property managers come to us with vacancies or needing an audit report or investigations for specific applicants, and I handle most of those requests. Big milestones is we passed 2,000 total requests since that inbox opened. And the inbox opened in September of 2022. And I guess just to give kind of an idea of scale, it's late October now. We passed 1,000 requests just last spring. So it's really picking up. A lot of property managers are becoming more fluent in placing their online requests, which makes everything a lot easier. That's been an uphill battle for sure, but we're getting a lot more cooperation and a lot more input from property managers themselves, which is great. It's always nice to have a communication channel between everybody. So that's what I do, and that's it.
I'm going to pile on to that. John and Joel are the ones responsible for getting our clients to finally participate like functioning, technologically sophisticated adult human beings. They've made them, they pulled them into behaving with us the way we need, and it's been painful. The other thing that I think Joel in particular did was it took 2 years to get our import system to function to where we could handle a lot more clients. And Joel and I were alone in the wilderness the first year, making us get to the place we're at. So it's very can't convey to you the level of work we did and the hard thought uh, that everyone's done, but that's a particular one that you didn't mention. So let's keep going.
Great.
Oh, on to Dan Derman.
All right. Yep. I'm Dan Derman. I work on all things financial at HousingWorks, so invoicing, taxes, insurance, all that fun stuff. Um, I'll leave it at that, short and sweet, because you'll be hearing more than enough of my voice throughout this meeting tonight. So I'll pass it on.
Dan and Ton are also the ones who meet with new clients, which is a big deal. I'm no longer able to do it emotionally going on.
John Craftman.
Okay. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm John Kraft. I've been working at HousingWorks for a little over 3 years now, I think. And while we don't really use the classic job titles at HousingWorks, I tend to consider myself an office manager. Keeping the workflow organized and training some of the new employees, and just helping John with any task that he ever needs to get done. And I would say one of the things I've been most excited to work to do this year is more of more media representation, such as getting our data published in the Boston Globe and working with a reporter to get our interview published in the Boston Globe, which is something that I really like to do aside from the regular work that we do. And the meta reports. I help design and update those for our annual meta reports. That is it.
I also want to give a shout out to John Kraft, speaking of media relations, for going toe to toe with a veteran Spotlight reporter who gave us a faulty attribution in one of the articles and refused to correct it. And John, told him what was up and really stood up for HousingWorks. So that was a really awesome moment as well.
Right, despite not having heard from him since.
He'll call again. You did it in such a way that he will call again because he needs the data. And he was abashed, even though he refused to apologize. He was abashed.
And I do forget the day after he did invite John Lavella to go on to a live radio broadcast, which I don't believe we did.
And we're glad not to, because it really wasn't something we could have contributed to. It was a bone, but it wasn't a bone that we should be chewing. So that was impressive. I forgot about that. Took a lot of nerve. So,
all right. So my turn. Hi everyone. Tonwin. Know everybody here, and yeah, my role here is the same kind of as it's been. Hopefully, just supporting from this kind of business side and just trying to grow the business responsibly, sustainably, and trying to just do what I can to support a team of folks and the many intricacies that go into making HousingWorks work. And this is going from kind of website stuff, client relation stuff, planning, lots of planning and thinking, trying to be forward thinking, and it's been really continuing to be a really fun thing. Really kind of has this part.
Oh, on that public Wi-Fi, so might be coming in and out a little bit.
Hawaii and Wappingers Falls have the worst Wi-Fi. Keep going.
Well, I'm not sure where the last last thing that I heard. Anybody share what the last thing I heard was?
Strategic thinking, forward planning,
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I'll just say, it's still been really, really fun thing to be here, part of this, and seeing the growth and the the new things that keep happening in life and within career and stuff. I really enjoy and seek this idea of expansiveness, and I think that really is continuing, and I'm excited to see how this continues to unravel this next year and for however long that we can keep doing it. All right. Pass it over to Patrick.
I want before we do that, I want to say Dan and Dan Curley, you'll be happy. They're the ones at the meetings who seem to be able to get to the ask and to get clients to actually move forward in a way that I never could. And it's a remarkable, they each can do it individually, and when they're together, they're also good. It's astonishing how they move new clients actually closer to us and get them in. They have that ability to close a deal. So
Yes. John and I have historically lost the point most of the time when we're talking. We wander, we give too much information. We're looking out the window, whatever it is, whatever distracts us. But that's really good, great to hear. That's a really great thing.
Well, my name is Patrick Chaze. I've worked with HousingWorks for almost 8 years now. It's been a good journey, and I've seen, HousingWorks evolve through so many things. So basically, I'm still doing the annual waitlist updates, where we update everybody we have in the database on our website. So basically, that's what I focus on. It took us a while for me and John to develop that side of the system so that we can be able to track our data and update it and also catch duplicates in our data. And along the way, somehow I got obsessed with it. So right now, that's what I focus on. I've been doing it for probably like 3 years now. So that's what I do up to now in HousingWorks. That's all I can say for now.
yeah, and that's an iceberg description. I think last quarter he handled 6,000 updates who were on 30,000 waitlists, 50,000 waitlists. So which means that people are getting into units quicker because people are on the right waitlist where they belong, which is the single hardest part of our company that we've, I think, finally broken the back of how to do that with a larger client base. But it also needs someone who can just sit for hours and focus in an unbelievable way. So it's a big deal. I think everybody here has undersold themselves, no matter how well they spoke. We're not really conveying how astonishing what they're doing is. We have Alyssa next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa, and I've been with HousingWorks for 6 months now. I'm working remotely right now, but I really enjoyed being in the office with John, and Xavier. Though I will say it was pretty hard to get used to being surrounded by so many Johns. Definitely a first for me. I started this job hoping to learn a lot, and I have. John Labella specifically really amazes me with his Excel skills, and he's been nice enough to teach me some of what he knows. And I've also gotten to use and work with the HousingWorks website, which was really interesting to me because it's not like anything else I've used before. I spend most of my time doing data entry and processing housing apps, but there have been some very exciting and memorable days. For those of you who aren't in the office or who aren't familiar with the office, we have a machine that allows us to put letters in, and it'll automatically fold them for us into envelopes so that we don't have to manually stuff letters into envelopes. So typically, I think one batch has 200 or 300 letters. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but on one of these days, I think I folded 600 or 700. It took me several hours, and you can probably imagine how I felt at the end of it. And on another one of these days, John Croft and I hand stamped, I think, like 400 envelopes because our stamping machine was down. It took us several hours too, and I lost track of how many paper cuts I got working at the office. It was a lot, but I I came to think back fondly on these memories, and it makes me laugh to think about them. And over time, I started to really appreciate the eventful days that broke up our routine because I don't know if you remember this, John Labella, but on my very first day, John warns me that I might get lost in the monotony of the work and forget our mission. And a couple times that has happened, but I try to remind myself of how important the work is. I see a lot of the same names on different applications, or I will see and read notes from applicants talking about how urgently they need housing. I also see a lot, like many of our applicants, mark themselves as homeless or fleeing domestic violence, and all that really motivates me to keep going. I know that I can't see the direct impact of our work, but I really do believe that we're helping to change people's lives, and I hope that we can continue to do so.
Well, I would also add, Alyssa is the fastest typist in the world,
That
most
is not
accurate.
true.
To my fastest one I've ever met, and she has another one of those people who is not at all afraid to speak up and say, "I don't like this," or "I think we could do this better." No one has to be prompted. And I'm happy to say that all of these people are capable of taking on pretty much every skill that I've learned. And we are beginning the process of bringing each of these remote people in to do some of that work that still I'm doing. And to think that I could pass that on to an Alyssa or a Patrick or a Costa or a Kraft or a Xavier it's thrilling. But that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really well said, Alyssa. Thank you for those words. And good segue, John. I think this is where we go on to a big part of our year, and where John was talking about kind of the last couple of years of really trying to have this idea of this infrastructural piece of Housing Works to be updated and efficient. And this year is started kind of around this time last year that we have uh, opted into taking on this big task of getting this consultant group, a Garrick co-op, that, as I'm sure, especially David Kokorowski, you know that behind the scenes, the technical side of things is, yeah, it's a wild place out there, and so we have this team now, a Garrett co-op. John will talk about a little bit more here shortly, and they are in the process, hopefully soon, finishing completing this migration from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10. What does that mean exactly? I'm not the guy to tell you. So, but from what I understand, it is like a major, security technological update that is, yeah, completely behind the scenes. So that's why you think this bridge analogy is very, very compelling, in that the bridge is, we have to do all the updates underneath that nobody sees, and it's giving way to making sure that this bridge is secure and can withstand more weight, more traffic flow. And we're able to do this right now while still providing our service to the clients. And yeah, a lot going on behind the scenes. So happy that that's happening. And at the same time, I think with this team of a Garrick, really, really cool group of guys, that, again, we have more people backing Housing Works rather than everything, especially from this pretty specific skill set, from a computer science point of view, that goes beyond solely in John Labella's head and Dave Onion. So that's really exciting. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, and we're going to pass it over to John to be able to kind of speak a little bit more specifically of how these things are changing behind the scenes.
Cool. I love that bridge analogy, and it is amazing that we had more traffic over the bridge while completely redesigning the underpinning. That was a great metaphor that I think, Ton, you came up with. Um, so the bottom picture is our current website. The top one is going to be the slightly slicker look of the new website. It's certainly prettier looking, but the real reason for the move from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10 is that Drupal 7 isn't going to be supported much longer for security reasons. Also, the the database tables behind it and the coding behind it needed to be rewritten for speed. David Kokorowski would understand this better than me. But in the process, we also made some upgrades that are saving us some hundreds or thousands of hours in the future. Um, it sucked up. I think, David, when you created the site by yourself, that was a 2 or 3 year process. Is that true?
It was at least that long. I mean, because we did it in parts, but
Yeah.
yes, I mean, it took it was many years of
Um,
work.
and then we had a redesign in 2015,
Mhm.
and now we have another one. And that 2015 took that programming team over a year just to understand what David had done, and it cost us, I think, 120,000. I think it's going to cost 70, 80, 90,000 this time. But the benefit is instead of just having Dave Onion Fisher, be the sole first programmer who understands it, we now have a company of 3 or 4 programmers who understand our system that we will continue to have in future. So it's a really big deal. This is a Garrett group. Um, and just niceties. I'm going to stay on there for a second. Can you bring back that one slide you just had? Um, the Just an example. Anytime we change someone's information, like they change from a 2 to 3 bedroom or they need a wheelchair, we have to update all the wait lists they're on, and the rules for every wait list are unique. Oh, they have to move to the bottom of the list now, or no, we don't have 3 bedroom, or they don't match the income anymore. And what's difficult is to do Patrick's work and John Costa's and Alyssa's work of going through the system and saying, oh, they need 3 bedroom, they need a wheelchair, and then remembering all those changes when you get to the end. So one of the things we're doing now is when you're on the wait list, here on the right, you can see everything that we changed. And then on the left, when you click on the wait list, it tells you how that change affects that wait list. So it lets us do a work at a level that nobody else can even touch. And it saves us a lot of time. You want to go to the next slide, Dan? You should visit agaric.coop and look at their other important clients. They do really wonderful work. They're a nonprofit, pretty much all socialists and anarchists and communists, I think. Really good at programming, good to talk with, like Dave Onion is. And they continually marvel at the complexity of the site, David Kokorowski. And in fact, they've changed nothing in how it works, just the underpinnings underneath it to make it do that smoother. So your original conception continues to work for every single client we've run into, which is astonishing. Um, Unlike the state system where they're having to say, oh, we're doing another iteration, we'll fix it fundamentally. We haven't had to do that. You want to go to the next slide, Dan? Ton, do you want to talk about this or do you want me to?
I'll take this section.
Okay.
So, one of the big, I would say changes of this year is just the volume of these kind of one-off projects that have been coming in. So, managing lotteries for new buildings opening up and doing major waitlist updates for clients who have waitlists that have kind of fallen by the wayside and haven't been cleaned out in a long time. So, in addition to all of the kind of regular day to day work that we do, we've been really picking up the pace with these special projects. Um, it's opened up a lot of doors with new management companies. We've made a lot of really great contacts. So, wanted to just kind of look through a timeline to show like what the pace of this has been a little bit, to show how things have been really picking up throughout the year, and I'll just kind of highlight a couple of the big projects that we've completed this year. um So February was, John mentioned it before, but we were part of a group that successfully lobbied for an increase in funding for a voucher program, which included overriding the mayor's veto in Boston, which is not easy to do. That's something we're really proud of in terms of helping to fulfill our kind of central mission of helping folks get into housing more quickly and more affordably. So that was very exciting for all of us for sure. In March, we ran a lottery for Peabody Properties, who has become a really strong source of projects for us. You'll see their name pop up here on the timeline several times, and they are now in discussions with us to come on as full-time clients to get our kind of full suite of waitlist services, which has been a big strategy of ours this year as well, trying to leverage some of these one-off projects into full-time clients. Moving on, we had a couple of really large lotteries through one of the Win management offices that we work with. So that was the Four Corners Plaza Lottery and the 1599 Columbus Avenue Lottery. 1599 was, as far as I know, the biggest lottery that HousingWorks has ever run, at least in terms of the financial side of things. It was a huge number of applications received. A lot of work went into it, but it went incredibly smoothly. We've gotten rave reviews from basically all sides. The city, the management company, and applicants alike have all been really happy with how we've handled this. So it's a testament to a lot of these technological improvements that we've talked about here. The online application platform in JotForm, which allows folks to apply on a smartphone or on the computer rather than having to handle thousands of paper applications, has really been a game changer for us and for our clients. We've had a couple of projects in New York this year, which is exciting as well. We've started to expand outside of Massachusetts. This Park Grove Realty is based in New York and New Jersey. This is actually a woman that we've worked with named Lucen Meyer, who was originally at Conifer Realty in Massachusetts. She then moved to a new company and immediately reached back out to HousingWorks to have us work on some lotteries at her new position. So speaks to, I think, the quality of the work that we've been doing, that she remembered us and specifically reached back out. So that was a very, very encouraging sign as well. And then more recently, we've been working on a fairly small lottery, the 71 Spencer Avenue Lottery, which is held by a private landlord in Chelsea, Massachusetts. What was exciting about that is that we were actually recommended to them by the city of Chelsea because we had done a lottery up there earlier in the year for one of our Win clients. So we are starting to see a lot more of this kind of word of mouth business coming in, where we are starting to be known as a company that can handle these lotteries professionally and quickly and cleanly. And that has kind of continued as well. And then coming through to, the current time, we have another lottery in New York with Park Grove and Lucen Meyer. We will have more lined up next year as well. We also had a Wingate management company who worked with HousingWorks years ago and, kind of fell off the radar, and they have also reached back out to us as well. So again, it does really feels like our kind of position in the affordable housing marketplace has started to really advance a lot over the past couple of years, and we've seen that come through this year with all of these one-off projects. All right, on to the fun stuff, the finances. So This year, again, we're seeing similar patterns that we have the last few years. A pretty big jump in overall revenue. We ended up just short of $370,000 in total revenue in the fiscal year of 2024, which is up from roughly $260,000 last year. So close to a 50% increase. You'll see that the increase is coming completely from the property management side of things. Our revenue from our advocate clients has continued to kind of slowly shrink the last couple of years. We've had a couple of large advocate clients who might have had 30 subscriptions in the past, cut that down to just 2 or 3. We do have a couple of potential big advocate clients coming up for the next year, including Pine Street Inn, which is one of, if not the biggest homeless shelters in the Boston area. So, the advocate program is most likely never going to be a huge source of revenue, but it is central to our mission. On one hand, it increases the quality of applicants that our property management clients have to choose from. It increases the quality of wait lists. And, most importantly, it gets folks into housing more quickly. So it is something that we're continuing to monitor and strategize around how we can increase outreach to advocate groups, how we can maybe increase the value they're receiving from our advocate subscriptions to kind of incentivize them to use the system more. But it is continuing to slowly shrink down a little bit year by year. That being said, the upswing on property management revenue has been really exciting. It's mostly been a result of those one-off projects that we were looking at earlier. The number of lotteries and waitlist updates has really increased this year, so that has brought in a nice chunk of money. So the increase in revenue this year has almost entirely been invested back into the company in a few different ways. One is through hiring of a couple new staff members in Xavier and Alyssa, who have been really awesome, have really hit the ground running, both in terms of, getting up to speed on kind of the basics of the day-to-day work. And as John said, like really taking ownership of the work and having a critical eye for how some of these workflows operate and making some really awesome suggestions that are going to save us a lot of time and a lot of stress. A lot of several of our existing staff as well have been working more hours, have increased their weekly hours to account for the increase in workload that comes along with a lot of these one-off projects and just the overall increased volume. And then the biggest investment of this extra revenue has gone into the website upgrade that we talked about. So I believe so far it's been about $70,000 between what we've given to Agaric and what has gone to Dave Fisher. About 45 to 50,000 of that was in the past fiscal year. So as anyone who has worked on one of these big projects knows, it's always going to take a little bit longer and be a little bit more expensive than expected. But it will yield some really nice benefits. So it's a worthy investment. And then just looking at revenue breakdown by source, it's very similar to last year. The vast majority of our revenue is still coming from our various WIN clients. Most of our full-time clients who use our full suite of services and are invoiced on a quarterly basis are WIN offices. Several of our bigger lotteries this year have also been through our WIN offices. That being said, we did see a little bit of an uptick in revenue from other property managers, went from about 10 or 11% last year up to 13% this year. And that should hopefully see an even bigger increase in the following fiscal year as we start to leverage some of these one-off projects into full-time clients. All right. So looking at some of these milestones for the year, Ton, you want to speak on a few of these?
Yeah, sure. There again, and also all of this.
Whoa, Ton, your sound is falling apart.
Sorry, you don't hear me.
Your sound is you're not really.
It's
Is
quite,
anyone else having trouble with him?
yeah, quite faint.
Yes.
Wait, let's see, let's see. Well, in that case, Dan, if you, everybody's gonna get this, but if you want to run through for me, that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, important to mention that we will be sharing this report with everybody tomorrow, so you'll have time to peruse it in more detail. But just some kind of quick highlights. We have so far this year done 14 lotteries and or waitlist updates, which is the most by far in a year for HousingWorks. That has really been, at least on my side, the financial side, that has been the biggest biggest accomplishment this year. Joel mentioned the help tickets are picking up in pace as well. I think that entire system that Costa and Joel have put together is kind of like the lifeblood of HousingWorks in a lot of ways. It's what keeps our clients happy and gives them what they need. So we're at right around 1,100 year to date of tickets answered. That'll keep going through these next couple months. So really, really incredible stuff. I think the big challenge this year has been that website upgrade. There had been hopes at the start of the project that it might be done over the summer and then it might be done in the fall, and now it's still a little murky. So that's a challenge that we're continuing to tackle. It is a big sink of money and time, but it is, a necessary evil there. And then other big milestones have been bringing on Xavier and Alyssa, continuing to improve the waitlist import tool, which I think is now in a very, very good place and is kind of the key to us being able to take on a higher volume of work without having to massively increase our staff. So that has been one of the big bottlenecks to sustainable growth that is now no longer there. And then we have just recently kind of had our first big transition of a one-time client who we ran lotteries for into a full-time client who we are now managing all of their wait lists. That is Madison Park Properties. They are now, I believe, our second largest portfolio that we manage. So that will be a very nice new revenue stream moving forward for us, where we will be able to invoice them quarterly for ongoing work rather than kind of one-off projects. All right, so a little testimonial page. Won't read through all this, but we got a really lovely testimonial from Peabody Properties, who we have run several lotteries for at this point and have become, really have developed a really close working relationship with. They are kind of at the top of our list for trying to get them on full time. They're, as always, it's a big ask to get clients to hand over their full portfolio, but those conversations are really progressing well, and we're getting close to closing that deal, hopefully in the next couple months. All right. And then looking ahead to next year, so far we're on pace for some more growth. these projections are based on the revenue that we've received so far in fiscal year 2025, which began on July 1st. Right now, that's tracking to get us somewhere around $420,000 in total revenue, which would be about an extra 50,000 compared to this year. I will say, like, compared to last year, I feel like there's a pretty wide range of outcomes for this projected revenue that really depends on how many of these one-off clients do ultimately transition into full-time clients. If we get all of the folks that we're talking to at the moment, we could see a real explosion in revenue very quickly. If it's just one or two, it might be more of the kind of slow but steady growth that we've seen over the last couple of years, which is still great. Still looking at sustainable growth without kind of stretching our capacity, but there is some very exciting possibilities looking ahead to next year if all the dominoes fall the way that we hope they do. So we will certainly be keeping an eye on that. All right, and then I think wrapping up the report here is looking at some of our goals for the next year. If the website doesn't launch in 2025, I'm going to tear my hair out. So fingers crossed that we hit that mark. With that launch comes the freeing up of a significant amount of funding. We have pretty hefty monthly payments there. So our immediate goal, once that funding does free up, is to increase wages for our staff, make sure that their incredible work is being rewarded in the way it should be. It's very tempting to go on and on again about how awesome the team is that's been assembled here. But it really is incredible. So that is the top priority once this weight has been lifted from our shoulders. And additionally, the next highest priority is to build a buffer. Dan Curley, I know you'll be happy to hear that. That has been a point of discussion for quite a while now, that we need to have more of a strategic reserve of funds sitting in the bank so that it's not a constant, struggle, and that we can have a little bit of a safety net. So that is the other top priority for the next year. And then what we've been talking about is hooking a big fish. So as I've said, taking these clients who we've been running lotteries for successfully and bringing them on full time. You can see a list here of some of the companies that we are currently in conversation with about just that. It's a pretty good mix of large and medium-sized management companies, a couple of them based in New York, some of them based in Massachusetts. We actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with United Housing Management in the hopes that they will continue working with us. They've recently taken on a couple buildings that we already manage, so it's a really exciting opportunity to get our foot in the door there. And then in terms of, marketing and increasing our social media presence, we're really getting very targeted and specific with our marketing efforts. We're going out and looking at, okay, what new buildings are going to be opening up in 2025, trying to get some real specific information out there so that when we are approaching new clients, it's not so much of a cold call. Here's a general overview of what we do. It's really like, here is exactly how HousingWorks can help your company, to really kind of strike a note with them as much as possible. And then also the meta reports, shout out to John Kraft, who has put together some really visually appealing and compelling data reports that nobody else has. They have been featured in the Boston Globe already, which was very exciting. We are, getting ready to start a real, strong campaign on social media to get the word out about these data reports, to show how useful they can be to builders, property managers, policymakers, housing advocates, and just show that really nobody else has the data we have because nobody else is as comprehensive and holistic as HousingWorks is in its approach to affordable housing. So that will be something else that hopefully we'll be able to share with this group in the next few days. These meta reports are really, really exciting. They look great and they tell a very, very compelling story. So that is a big goal for 2025 is to really increase the impact of those reports and get them out there as much as possible. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Appreciate everybody bearing with me through all that chunky information from the annual report. As I said, we'll be sharing that with everybody tomorrow. So you'll be able to kind of peruse it at your own leisure as well. But at this point, I think we're ready to just kind of open things up for discussion, comments, or questions from the board and from shareholders.
Well, I'll kick off. That was fantastic. It was I think I said this last year too. It was like the best annual report I've ever seen this company produce. But now you've upped it. You've upped your game. So I look forward to getting the copy of it. So one comment, and then I do have a question. So the comment is, John hit on this point earlier on about, like the thing you're proudest of is, basically the culture of the organization that exists there. And I guess I want to say that that's one thing I feel very gratified by as well, that the culture of this organization over well, I don't even want to think about how many years, it's been in existence in 25 maybe at this point, something along those lines, that as many things have changed, the underlying technology's changed, the product offer has changed. Certainly the people working on the project has changed, that consistency of not just the mission of the organization, but actually like the culture of the team that is working on it. I don't know. It's hard to maintain that, and so I really appreciate all of you and John obviously is kind of a culture carrier for this organization as a sort of consistent individual through the whole thing. So anyway, it's just really impressive and not an easy or by any means guaranteed outcome. That would still be the case. So super impressive about that, and heartwarming too. The question I had, being a little bit at arm's length from all of this is, like I know there was a lot of noise. Well, there's consistently a lot of noise around, oh, we don't need HousingWorks. We have, XYZ, waitlist management tools from, big commercial providers, or, the Housing Navigator, obviously it was a bunch of noise in this kind of field, right, over the last couple of years. I have the sense, that what HousingWorks is offering today in terms of the value you're providing to providers in particular, which is where most of the revenue is coming from, it's always been unique, but not even something that any of those other providers are trying to solve for, and to the extent that's true, it's really promising because it means it's just a matter of your own ability to scale, your own ability to reach, the customers who aren't yet aware, or the potential customers, the management companies that aren't yet aware of this, with something that they're not going to find anywhere else, which is an unenviable position and something that they really value, on the basis of the testimonials we've seen. So I guess I just wanted to check that, like, are there other companies or the Housing Navigator or whatever that either are going to your same customers or could be going to your same customers and saying, oh, we can do that stuff that HousingWorks does and legitimately present an alternative that you're going to have to fight with, or do you have such a compellingly unique, like we do XYZ thing that they absolutely don't do, that's at least for right now not a concern?
Um, that is, I have good answer for that. I think that's an amazing question. I mean, like you hit on the nub of everything right there. So the issue is this: the things that are being created, like the Navigator or the state's centralized waitlist for public housing, which uh, as a side note of satisfaction, the headline in the Sunday Globe on that one was "A Nightmare of Epic Proportions." It was a disaster. It was badly designed. Um,
Yeah.
all of them are government initiated, government funded, even if they're done through a nonprofit. It was pushed by people in government. And as a result, they're stuck only working in one of the three areas that we provide. They cannot do what we do, which is have a search apply tool and a waitlist tool and a policy reporting tool. They can't. And
Mm-hmm.
anyone else who wanted to do it as a for profit would have to struggle with the 20 years of not making any money to get there. So I don't see any real competition happening. And every time we've met with another management company, they're like, you can do that, you can do that. Um, and for instance, with this year, we also learned that we can actually import into their tenant softwares and export from them, which is something we've been trying to figure out if it was possible for years. So that's going to broaden our audience. So I don't perceive any threat at all. Not to mention that if someone had millions and millions and wanted to be willing to lose money for 20 years while they developed a competitor, they're 20 or 25 years behind in understanding the little details that make it function. It really is only functional because of every single part of it crossing all those different the waitlist side, the search side, the policy side. So David, I don't worry about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
The Navigator claims that it's, the replacement, but all it is a search apply tool and mostly middle income housing.
Mm-hmm.
It's too hard to use for low income housing people to figure out if they're eligible. It doesn't even provide the applications, even a blank copy. So it might, we never wanted to be the audience that worked for people who make 90,000, 150,000 a year. We could, but that was never a goal. And that's where they seem to be working. So regardless of the false broadcasting that they set out that they're the only or definitive one, I think our usage has increased. It's just moved more to the free advocate usage.
Right.
That makes
Well,
sense?
is Housing Navigator, like, do they go and do they even engage with the management companies other than saying,
But well, they have
"How's it
government. The government requires people to list their housing if it's income restricted with them.
going?"
But again, it's too hard to wander through it and figure out where you could apply, and then you can't find the application. So anyone who would be a client of ours would give up rather shortly after using it. Um, I want to say something you didn't raise. Why is our advocate subscription dropping even though we're doing better and better?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's several reasons for that. One of them is we did, first of all, the free service is much better. And for a lot of people, there's no need, they don't have an advocate. You can only get an advocate if you're homeless. And the
Mm-hmm.
state funds most of the advocates, and they've been cutting back on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the bulk of the people are people using it themselves. So
Uh-huh.
first of all, the free HousingWorks site. The second is our online and phone apps are working even with elder and disabled populations. I think we did an elder lottery. 90% of the elders applied online, and that's our free system. I mean,
Wow.
it's a free system. And then the city of Boston, in Boston, has made it harder for anyone to run a lottery without using their approach, not ours.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the reasons. Perhaps in another state where they don't have 40 kinds of housing, we'd either have an easier way in or a harder way in. But the reason we're doing better despite that is that because we operate in all three sectors, it doesn't matter if one of them drops if the other increases. That makes sense? I
Mm-hmm.
think you and I thought initially the advocate one would be our biggest source of
Mm-hmm.
revenue.
Sure.
Well, I did note that, but it just seems to me that this business has found, where's the money? Like,
Yeah.
where are the people who have the dollars who are willing to pay for the solution? I mean, on some level, if it made if there's so little today coming in on the advocate side, like if it would help your business to have more penetration there, that you might as well just give it away. If you could get one more management company on board,
Mhm.
but not that I'm suggesting that you should, but I am not at all concerned about that paid advocate number going down because it's such a small proportion of your income at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of those, like the agency that had 40 subscriptions, they bought them and then only two of their staff ever used it. Two. The others didn't even sign on once. And I was the one who pointed out to them, why are you buying all these and they're not using them? Can't you make them do it because they're doing a better job? Well, apparently they can't. So again, it's a thing we had to let that go because some of us, I'll put myself and I'll put Joel Sipley maybe in there, were outraged that these people were not doing their jobs well.
Yeah.
And we had to let that go.
Yep.
Well, and it sounds like it does sound like it would be helpful to identify, particularly even within our own conversations, the volume of free and the free client searches that are happening from individuals who are actually looking for housing themselves. And then because it reinforces our mission, obviously, of feeling like we're doing something that's helping on a grander scale than what it looks like in those financials. But I thought it was interesting and I'm assuming that two things are filling the void that we assumed advocates would play, and that was entering client data, giving us client data on an ongoing basis. So as you're increasing your waitlist management, that's kind of bringing in that data, and to be honest, faster and more efficiently, and probably the updates are more efficient as well. So there are a lot of different reasons. I think I want to reinforce David's statement that to be honest, giving the service really meets our mission as well as kind of puts out into the world who's helping real in some real ways, but that we have to be able to talk about it in some data. And I'm sure you have it. It just didn't happen to be in this particular report.
I didn't
The
think of that, Dan, actually. I'm going to look at the Google Search Console and see if we can get an idea of the anonymous usage.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. And the other, as we talked about this idea of bringing these three different groups together initially 25 years ago, whatever number of years it is. The government was supposed to be playing a bigger role as well, and this kind of political will to know more about what's happening in affordable special needs housing. It harkens back to 30 years ago when we first started doing head counts of homeless people. That the government offices just basically said that we don't really want that information. And so it's really the advocates and the advocates for homeless individuals were the ones that pushed and created that system. Government kind of begrudgingly became part of it after a while. And so I don't know if there is a strategy with government. Is it time now to take your data to after this election, and hopefully we have a reasonable government to go to, that we go back up to HUD and sit with them and talk a little bit more about the potential, so that there's a funding stream for individual organizations. We work in a field where there are incredibly small margins and of money, and we the reasons that the winds of the world are able to do this in a larger volume is because of their literal volume of units. And so how do we, again, I know that you're thinking about it and talking about it, but it may be another way of kind of thinking now that we now that we have people that are able to tell the story in a very succinct way, and is it time for either us to do national conferencing or really reapproach government on a different level? They kind of move out of Massachusetts and really begin to talk about something in a broader scale. You may already be doing this. I just wonder if it's
I think Ton and Dan should talk with you, and I'd like to be there about that because I haven't been stretching my horizon that way at all. And both of those sound, I would love to get back to HUD. Oh, I'd love to get back like the National Alliance of Homeless,
yeah,
I forget the name of the group.
yeah.
Yeah. Dan, just to answer your question, this year, in the last 12 months, we showed up about 3 million times in Google searches, and about 73,000 people clicked over to the website, which is 30,000 more than the previous year.
Yeah. So these,
Pardon me, that's computers, not people. That's like if it was a library computer, it could have been used by 100 people, but it only counts as one.
yeah. And so, and those are and that may be that we can go in some way, find a way to look deeper into that data, but those are important numbers, both for the work that all of you are doing, and it's it's always and I love that people are both happy in the environment, but also that you're staying focused, Elisa, and really reminding about the mission. Those are really important aspects of the work, and because it does become road after in some cases, and it's hard to see the end result, and particularly because it's so difficult to capture real placements of individual and people into homes, and so you don't readily get that feedback about what's actually the impact of your work. And I love that you're also that that we have a new IT team that will in the background that will help us. But I Dan earlier, Dan Derman answered my one of my questions about so you're getting some more money. You're not going to be paying for hopefully the Drupal conversion forever. That we do strategize on how to put something aside so that you can do all the marketing that you need in order to get this wonderful story out. It's amazing to me that this is happening in such a great way and with so few people that are actually each one of you making an impact that our story isn't out everywhere. It's amazing to me that government hasn't come to the table and begged you for your data and participating. Just amazing to me. You know, I know that government's fucked in a whole lot of ways, but you know, it's just it's hard to believe.
Well, when they do come, you can be sure I'll have an answer for them that will drive them away so fast.
That's why we have those two buffering the world.
My two big fantasies for the future are that what we're doing with JotForm we could eventually import into our own site. We're not relying on them, and that someone like John Kraft writes a book about the story of HousingWorks. But the thing is, we can't pull anyone away from anything else right now. But that would be that would be my personal two exciting things. Anyway,
great. And just as a last word, I'm just so I think moved and impressed by the work.
You hear that, guys, ladies,
women? Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have to thank John though, because John did teach us a lot of it, and he's dealt with all of us and all of our questions and everything. So, a big round of applause to John. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
thank you. This only worked because for the first time in our history, we have the same people staying for year after year, and that means that the number one thing going forward has to be salaries to make it harder for someone to want to leave or to need to leave. That is the number one thing, because it is the stability, the quality, but the stability. So, Dan?
Yeah, so I know we kind of got 10 minutes over the hour, so I think it might be time to let everybody, if they didn't eat dinner, get some dinner in and start recouping for the night. But really appreciate everybody taking the time to be here and their thoughts and their contributions. And also don't want to leave this as like the end of the conversation in any type of way. Anything that comes up after this meeting that you feel would be, that would be cool to know or think about in the future, we like always welcome. And yeah, I really, Dan and David, y'all brought up some good points. And I also, David's question about our nicheness, there's one thing that's also very specific that we're discovering and learning how to talk about better is the importance for many property management companies to kind of understand the story of an applicant from the time they start applying to the time that they're housed. And this can do a lot. This shows the problems in the policy making, the challenges that are consistent across the board, the long wait list times. And I think this is something that property management companies really appreciate. And then also the interconnected piece, because these CDCs, they may have a portfolio of these 10 buildings and they can offshoot their service to us, and these applicants sit on, call it 7 out of 10 of those properties, right? And we do a waitlist update for each building. But if that person is on multiple lists, they're saving money by getting their information updated one time, like multiple times throughout the year if they're sitting on multiple lists, which this population, their information is changing so rapidly, which is it benefits that company greatly. And yeah, I just really want to hone in on that part about any thoughts that come up for y'all after, ways that you think that we can present ourselves, or any other potential clients that you think that that would be good for us to be aware of. So I just want to leave that door open for sure.
In the chat, Tom, that was a great idea. I left your Dan's and my email. Anyone here, you don't mind if they reach out to one you or me or Dan?
Oh, please, I love yapping my gum.
Yeah. Yeah, I also want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'll make it quick, but my closing thoughts are we've talked a lot about the incredible team we've put together, all the awesome work we've done. All of that is a testament to John Labella. He is like, not only does he have like an encyclopedic knowledge of affordable housing policy and regulation, he knows every inch, every nook and cranny of HousingWorks and all the work that he could do every one of our jobs. And for many years, he did do every one of our jobs himself. But on top of that, he's also like the heart and soul of HousingWorks. He keeps us focused on the mission. He keeps us focused on our values, and he brings just a really positive energy. So, want to make sure we give John his props before we leave tonight.
That is so sweet. And yet I will point out that it was when y'all all came on that things got better.
You didn't. You stopped having to do 9 people's jobs by yourself. So we're glad we can take all of that off of your plate.
I want to shout out to Austin, who actually had some of the ideas for like the was it the centralized waitlist? There was something that I said, oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. And then Dan Curley or someone else here said, why don't you, no, Austin, you had the idea for the import system that finally years later has happened. And someone else said, Dan or David, we need to find a way to, uh, I've lost what it is here. To the centralized waitlist idea in itself was someone else's idea at this table. So all of you are even some of the stockholders are providing us some really good ideas. It just takes a while to get to them. Well, we could have an hour's worth of self-congratulation at this point. I'm still very happy to be here. I'm more happy by the fact that I'm close to being made. It's possible I can see the redundancy. That's nothing would give me more pleasure than I don't mean to let it go because I still want to keep working ever after at some level, but to know that there's people here who can do anything I do, and many of them are already doing a lot of those things. So my goal personally is to get those last two or three tasks passed on to actually anyone at this group of people can do it, which is astonishing. So so
Great.
lovely.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll leave on that positive note then. Again, thank you all for joining tonight. We'll be sharing the annual report and a recording of this meeting tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, yeah, so great to see everyone. Hope everyone has a great night.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right,
you.
guys.
Everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.